What's up guys, welcome to AnimeKouhai. If you want to help me out, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel.
Shockingly, it was Luminous, disguised as a maid in the employ of the two paladins in attendance. She heartily applauded the performers, looking gloriously satisfied. I tried to keep up, and soon, other clapping overlapped with ours. The reaction was cacophonous. Elmesia, Heavenly Emperor of Thalion, Gabil, King of the Dwarven Kingdom, all the nobility of the Western nations, Milam and Frey. Even Midray, a man I wouldn't expect to be very cultured. They all stood up and sent out their applause. This tradition of clapping was the same in this world, it seemed. I wasn't sure if a long-gone otherworlder had brought it in or if it was just always that way. What I did quickly learn, however, was that this world didn't have a custom of giving encores. Public artistry in itself wasn't a common thing, so I suppose that should have been obvious. Thus I assumed we were done here, but apparently not. Darkness fell on the hall once more, before the entire stage was relit and the orchestra, with Shuna's piano and Xian's violin this time, played one final song to round things out. Music, and art in general, has a way of tearing down barriers. Seeing this concert unfold, I wanted to believe, for just a moment, that there are things out there that everyone in the world truly can find wondrous. The concert was a monster hit. It was the only topic on visitors' lips as we retired to the reception for a light lunch.
Wasn't that just wonderful?
Ah, what can I say?
I had my eyes closed, taking it in from start to finish.
Me too. And who cares whether it was man or monster? Those melodies are still in my ears.
Indeed. Quality is quality. That's all there is to it.
Based on my eavesdropping, it sounded like high praise. And at least one member of the crowd was going up to me now.
Sir Rimuru, I would very much like to hear this performance again. What can I do to gain such an opportunity, if I could?
We'll be holding the concert regularly over the next 3 days.
I told him, but I suppose we should consider a more regular performing schedule. Our song repertoire wasn't that vast yet, but I was sure it'd grow going forward. Having more chances to show it off would provide more practice motivation, besides.
That was a fine performance.
Luminous whispered to me as we passed by in the hall.
I enjoyed it more than I expected to.
Quite a compliment, I thought. She didn't strike me as the sort to offer praise freely. I should probably consider that a 5-star review.
Xian was certainly a surprise.
I commented to Benimaru.
I'm sure she was. But, well, despite all appearances, Xian has always had a good sense of rhythm. She certainly seemed extraordinarily compatible with that violin instrument as well. And Shuna, too. I didn't know she could play piano, but she always did enjoy singing. It does not surprise me.
It all made sense to him. He apparently knew they were good singers, and come to think of it, I remember them breaking out a happy tune or two as they went about their business. It made me realize, despite my intentions, that I still didn't really know everyone very well. After lunch, we had our science presentation scheduled for the afternoon. I followed Rigard as he guided the crowd of nobility, still keyed up from the morning's events. We passed by the concert hall from before, this time heading straight for the museum. Our destination was the historical archives inside, as much as it seemed odd for nobility to be in there. Gabil and Vester awaited us at the entrance. Being a former Dwargon minister, Vester was immediately recognizable to a few in the crowd, eliciting murmurs of surprise. Vester himself paid it no mind, flashing a smile as he greeted the tour. The two of them guided us into the building.
Inside this case is the first healing potion that Sir Rimuru ever created. It is a complete extraction from hypocute herbs, with all impurities removed. It boasts 99% purity, and while it is not quite up to the level of a revival elixir, its healing qualities are equivalent to a full potion.
I listened to Vester talk as we went along. Then I realized we had made a mistake. Vester was offering valid, thorough guidance, yes, but to those without scientific knowledge, it must have been incredibly boring. I could already see a few people tuning him out, staring at the ceiling. And we had scheduled this all wrong. If we held the tech demo in the morning, everyone would be awake, refreshed, and perhaps more open to this guided tour. I didn't think we'd have so much disengagement anyway. But thanks to the thrill of that morning concert, all this scientific mumbo-jumbo must seem like such a letdown. Besides, think about it. We were entertaining people from royal courts and noble mansions. They might care about the things we produced, but with most of them, they couldn't care less about how they were made. Vester must have picked up on this. He snickered a bit.
But I see I am bogging all of you down in needless detail. Let's turn our attention elsewhere, then, and stage a scientific experiment.
He exchanged a look with Gabil, who nodded back.
In this experiment, we will pursue what healing potion is, exactly, as much as we can. Diluting this full potion to 20% strength creates high potion, used to treat serious injuries. Dilute this further, and you create 20 doses of low potions. That should show you just how effective a full potion can be.
Gabil lined up bottles of all 3 potions on a table.
If any of us is currently dealing with an injury,
he said,
we would be able to test out the effectiveness of each potion. But it would be barbaric to hurt ourselves for the sake of experimentation. Thus we have come up with rather an interesting experiment.
As he spoke, Vester brought in a broken sword.
So will a potion fix this sword?
Asked Gabil.
Does one of you have the answer to that question?
Rubbish. Hypocute herbs only work on living things.
The shouted reply came from a man dressed in magician's garb, perhaps the court sorcerer for one kingdom or another. He totally dismissed the idea, and it looked like he had the intelligence to back up that answer. Gabil laughed and nodded.
Yes, of course. At the very least, there is no way this low or high potion could ever be effective against a sword.
That much was obvious. There wasn't much need to stage an experiment. What was Gabil, and Vester, for that matter, getting at with this question?
So the question is, how far does that rule apply? What do all of you think?
More protests from the crowd. They must have thought Gabil and Vester were treating them like idiots. Things were even getting a little raucous. I know this wasn't what they were expecting, but sheesh, piped down. But how far could you apply healing potions, huh? Well, they worked on people, of course, as well as animals, plants, and monsters. Where's the threshold, then, the boundary between effective and ineffective? This was actually kind of fascinating. Is being alive, or not the main thing? Probably not. It was the presence of a consciousness that likely made the difference.
Report. Plants have a consciousness as well. A consciousness has its roots in the soul, a collection of the spiritual particles that form magicules. Its presence, or lack thereof, is thought to be the difference.
Right. Plants have wills. Maybe they're not fully sentient, but they have a desire to keep living. But swords don't have souls, and therefore no wills. They're just things, so obviously. But hang on. Something just occurred to me. Didn't Kaijin say that swords do have wills of their own? No way.
I would like to know as well. And the desire to know provides the entryway to new discoveries.
Indeed. And trust me, I ordered him to not conduct this ridiculous experiment at first. I called him a fool in my mind, for that matter. But I was the only fool in the room. I was so bound by the laws of common sense, I forgot my original drives as a researcher.
Vester smiled warmly as he sprinkled some full potion on the broken sword. Then, just a little, but enough so that everyone could see, the sword reacted.
And here is the answer. While it does not fully rebuild the sword, we are clearly seeing the early signs of repair here.
Ridiculous. I can't believe it. Healing potion could be used for this.
The tour group couldn't hide their astonishment. I could see why. It flew in the face of common sense. You'd have a hard time not being surprised, and that included me. I had no idea they were conducting experiments not even I could anticipate the results of. They didn't give me any report on this, which only added to the shock.
Of course, you will only see these effects on arms and armor that matured past a certain level. The weapon must be made of magisteel, at the very least, and it will not give a reaction unless it has been used regularly by its owner.
So it'd have no effect unless the sword had a will instilled in it.
Why?
Gabil asked Gabil in his low, stentorian voice.
Did you want to know something like that?
It's simple, my lord. I found it difficult to believe that plants and vegetation growing in the wild have wills of their own. But after experimentation, we found that healing potions work perfectly fine on them.
Now that we had full potion mass manufacturing underway, there was a decent quantity to work with. Thus they had been trying it on all sorts of things. Certainly, the desire to learn was the first step toward new discoveries. I recalled the experiments we did in grade school science class, challenging ourselves to do things that seemed pointless at first. Gabil had that same spirit, the first things to just try it out. So it worked on plants, restoring damaged tree bark and producing new buds from broken branches.
I then remembered the existence of dryads.
Gabil said.
Vegetation may have only a weak consciousness at first, but over many months and years of life, They can evolve into powerful monsters, can they not? But as I thought, this may only happen under certain conditions.
Around half the audience was taking a keen interest in this explanation. I'd expect the more quick-witted among them to be fascinated, yes. This was the kind of research I'd normally want to keep confidential, after all. Should I let Gabil keep going? The thought, as mean-spirited as it felt, crossed my mind, but I hurriedly brushed it away as I listened on.
The only things that react to healing potion are those already intertwined with magicules. Things with no magicules to them at all show no reaction in our testing. What this means is that magicules house consciousness itself, or, at least, the two are deeply related.
Yes. And when Sir Gabil presented these data, it led me to reconsider my thoughts as well. Soon, a question arose in my mind: what are magicules?
Magicules were one of this world's unique substances, freely spread around the atmosphere like oxygen. They were the engine for all kinds of mysterious forces, and people could wield them to do their bidding, to some extent.
So we have a sample from a certain plant here. And over in this other room, I can show you an enlarged picture of it.
We followed Vester to another room, a large, spacious chamber with chairs lined up in rows, something like an AV-equipped college lecture hall. It had a projector, still in the trial testing phases, and there was a stretched-out white sheet on the wall to serve as a screen. Gabil curiously observed the projector but remained politely quiet about it, realizing now was not the time. That's Gabil for you, mature enough to pick the right time and place. Once everyone was seated, Gabil turned on the projector, a device with light-based magic inscriptions that let it project color images on the screen. The chamber's lights dimmed as the image appeared, surprising a few in the audience.
Take a look at this image,
Vester said, ignoring the chatter.
It shows the structure of the plant sample you saw before. And this is the structure of some grass, the type you see growing anywhere.
He placed the enlarged images next to each other. I didn't get why Vester was acting so haughty here, a certain plant, and so on. What's his aim?
Are they not the same? I don't see any difference.
No, me neither. Why aren't they the same?
The voices in the crowd were met with wide agreement. A few of them weren't as sure. That part is different, no, that part is, but I doubted any of them were on the mark. So what was the answer?
Now, let's enlarge these further.
What do you think? They look just the same, don't they?
Vester and Gabil flashed villainous smiles, and then they revealed the trick.
That's it for this video, guys. Thank you for always watching my videos and supporting my channel. Shoutout to 11th YT, Artistically 420, Emma Luardo, Rahul Subramanian, Neil Thakar, Ilya Hakobian, Hexelus Lux, Morris Newby, Efren Rimasag, and last but not least, shoutout to Julius Wonders. I'll see you guys in the next video.